Judaism and the Golem, loyal protector or a terrible monster? Golems, creatures brought to life through a Jewish ritual, have captivated audiences for centuries with their mysterious origin and powerful presence. Originating in Jewish folklore, the golem is typically portrayed as a mute humanoid creature made of clay or mud, brought to life to protect the Jewish community from persecution. The golem is one of the most famous creatures of Jewish folklore and has inspired a surprising amount of modern fiction. Where does this tradition come from, and what manner of a monster are we dealing with? Feet of clay. In Jewish folklore, a golem is an animated being created from inanimate matter such as clay or mud. The earliest stories revolved around these creatures date back to early Judaism. In the Talmud, the central text of rabbinic Judaism and the primary source of Jewish religious law, Adam, the first man, is originally created as a golem since he was made from dust, kneaded into a shapeless husk. Unlike Adam, however, golems are not considered to be human. They are usually depicted as being unable to think for themselves, and early golems especially were unable to speak. It's also important to note that not just anyone has the power to create a golem, so to do so one must be close to divinity, quote unquote. If one is close enough to divinity, creating a golem is not too difficult. During the Middle Ages, Jews studied passages from the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of Jewish mysticism, to learn how to create a golem. The first step was to use the various letters of the Hebrew alphabet to form a Shem, one of God's names, and write it on a piece of paper. Insert the Shem into the golem's mouth or forehead would then activate it. And according to some Hebrew legends, controlling the golem required inscribing certain Hebrew words onto the golem. For example, certain versions of legends about golems state that one must write the word emet, truth in Hebrew, on the golem's forehead for it to obey commands. To deactivate the golem, all one needed to do was to remove the truth from a letter from the forehead, changing the word from truth to death. And since that was done, the creature was returned to lifeless clay. What were golems used for? Golems were predominantly used to protect Jewish communities from harm. Jews have been victimized repeatedly through history, and the golem was often depicted as their ultimate defender. Often the golem is shown as having supernatural powers like the ability to turn invisible or raise the spirits of the dead, as well as enhance strength and durability. Other mystics were said to have used golems as servants. They were supposedly used to carry out manual labor and perform tasks that were too difficult or dangerous for humans to do. Solomon ibn Gabirol, 11th century Jewish philosopher, was said to have created a female golem which he repeatedly used for household chores. This is not to say golems were always described in a totally positive light. Many tales focus on the downsides of creating a golem. These stories often feature a golem that initially follows orders and acts as a hero, but then becomes increasingly rebellious and refuses to follow its master's orders. These stories usually end in tragedy as the golem goes on indiscriminate killing sprees. Golems in Jewish history. The golem's primary role as a protector of the Jewish downtrodden means is closely linked to Jewish history. The Jews have historically been repeatedly oppressed, and the golem has been interpreted as a metaphor for the Jewish community's struggle for survival in the face of persecution and oppression. The most famous golem story is the Golem of Prague. This legend claims that in the late 16th century, the rabbi of Prague created his very own golem from the clay of the banks of the Vltava River, and it's said that he used the golem to protect the Prague ghetto from anti-Semitic attacks and pogroms. And depending on the version of the tale one hears, the Jews were about to be either expelled or executed by the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II. The rabbi named his golem Joseph, and it was one of the high-powered versions, able to turn invisible and summon ghosts as well. And the rabbi was cautioned to maintain control of his golem. Every Friday evening he deactivated the golem so that it could rest during the Sabbath. One Friday the rabbi forgot to remove the Shem and feared his golem would break Sabbath. In some versions of the tale, the golem's breaking of the Sabbath caused the golem to become a violent monster that went on a murderous rampage. In other versions, the golem fell in love and was rejected, causing it to transform into a monster. So for whatever reason, most versions of the tale have the rabbi losing control of Joseph and being forced to put him down by removing his Shem. The legends then state that the golem's body was stored in the Geniza, the attic of the Prague synagogue, ready for the next time that it would be used. Up until 1883, when the attic was renovated and no golem was found, many people believe the golem was still located there. So the golem represents the historic need of the Jews to defend themselves against persecution. The golem represents that by using ingenuity and resourcefulness that could protect the Jewish people. The dangers of playing God. The story of the golem also has a darker side. Today, the folklore surrounding golems has been attributed as being the inspiration for more modern tales like Frankenstein, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and even The Terminator. While the golem is usually created with the best intentions, most tales revolving around them feature the golem losing control. It's been used as a literary device to explore themes of power, control, and the dangers of playing God, as well as humility. Their faith gives the Jews the power and ability to stand up to oppression. However, if that power is misused, taken for granted, then disaster is always around the corner. This is an important lesson on the dangers of power, no matter what religion a person follows. And this is on Historic Mysteries by Robbie Mitchell. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.